Hi, I'm Ashley and thank you for tuning in to the Environmental Education channel here at Central Coast Council. Today we're going to be talking all about the native bee species on the Central Coast and some of the ways that you can help to protect these very important animals. Now, the reason they're so important is because they provide a very important ecological service called pollination, which is essentially the process of transferring pollen from the male part of a flower to the female part of a flower, which results in fertilization, which produces a seed, which in turn germinates and allows a new plant to grow. And of course, we all need plants for so many reasons. So if you would like to produce a thriving wildflower garden or fruit and vegetables, it's really important that we have a healthy population of insects such as native bees. Did you know in Australia we have over 1,700 species of native bees? Now, the most well-known of our native bees are our stingless bees. These are the ones that produce honey. They're a social bee species. They like to live in hives and they have a queen and lots of worker bees. And keeping a native beehive is a highly specialised process, and I'm going to talk you through that another day. Today, we're going to be focusing on the 99% of our native bee species that are either solitary or semi-social. Now, these bees don't produce honey, but they are very important pollinators. And many of these species will benefit from the kinds of bee hotels that we can easily make and put up in our backyard. There are quite a few different types of bee hotels that will suit different species of native bees. So I'm going to show you a few of these today, and they don't have to be too elaborate or fancy. Honestly, the bees don't mind if they're simple, as long as they're providing them with a safe and suitable place for them to nest. The bees will love it. The first type of bee hotel that I'm going to show you today is one suitable for bees such as the leafcutter, the resin, or the mast bee. And it's the type of hotel you might be most familiar with, the type that you can quite easily buy from places like hardware stores as a commercially made bee hotel like these ones here. Now, if you do want to buy one pre-made like this, I will let you know there are a couple of little modifications that we like to do before we put them in our garden. You see, native bees like holes between 2 and 9 millimeters. They're like a variety of different size holes, and sometimes the ones that you can buy commercially have holes that are just a little bit too big. But don't worry, it's easy to fix. All you need to do is get some little pieces of bamboo and fill up some of the bigger holes with some of these littler pieces of bamboo, which are hollow and provide a smaller hole as an option for those species of bees which like to be more confined and protected. If you are really handy at carpentry or you want to have a go at some woodwork, you can also make your own really easily. It's great if you can use recycled timber, and this is one that I started making this morning. So I've put some pieces of timber together for the walls, the back and the sides, just using a simple hammer and nail. And I'm just going to pop on the roof of this one now to finish it off. Really easy, just some hammers and nails. We'll pop that roof on there. It's pretty fun to practice your carpentry skills. And it's a great way to use any leftover timber that you might have lying around. You can paint and decorate these so that they are beautiful pieces of art in your garden. And once you've created that outer shell, you're just going to need to fill it up on the inside with nice small cavities for these species of bees which like to go inside the really nice small cavity holes. Bamboo is a really great filler, and if you get lengths between 10 and 15 centimeters long, they make a really good filling for inside your bee hotel. Remember to provide a variety of different sizes, anywhere between 2 and 9 millimeters for lots of different holes in there. The other thing that you can do is get some pieces of timber and you can drill holes in the end, just using a drill bit, and make sure they're about 10 centimeters deep, and again, a variety between 2 and 9 millimeters wide. And you can pop those pieces of timber into your bee hotel as well. This is a really great way to make your own if you're feeling particularly crafty and if you have good carpentry skills, but if not, there are some other methods that are much easier. A really easy way to provide a home for resin bees, mask bees, and even wasp mimic bees is to simply drill holes in leftover pieces of timber or hardwood that you might have lying around. The harder the wood, the better, because this prevents it from deteriorating when it's out in the weather, and it also means that the holes that you drill into it will be really nice and smooth for the bees, because they actually use those holes as a nest to lay their eggs. It's really important that they're deep enough. You need them to be at least 10 to 15 centimetres deep, because if they're too shallow, what actually ends up happening is that all the young that emerge end up being the same sex. But this is a really simple, easy way for you to use up any leftover timber or hardwood from building or projects that you might have to stop those materials going into landfill. One of my favourite hacks to create the easiest type of bee hotel possible is either using some twine or a mug to put in little sections of bamboo and hang them all around your garden. It's really easy to do. If you want to use a mug, you just want to get a little piece of builder's clay, put it in the end of the mug, and then push your pieces of bamboo of all different lengths and sizes into the cavity there. Squish them down into the builder's clay so that they stay and that the ends are sealed, and leave that to dry. And then you can hang that up in your garden, and that'll create a great little mini bee hotel for lots of different bees. Or if you don't want to use a mug, you can actually just use some twine, wrap them around a little handful of those pieces of bamboo, and just make sure that you use some builder's clay to seal off one of the ends of the pieces of bamboo so that they have an open end and a closed end to make their nests in. And you can put lots of these all throughout your garden. It's a really good idea to put them close to any flowers that you might have that might need pollinating. There's a particular species of native bee called the reed bee that actually likes to create their own cavities in their bee hotel. So hollow bamboo doesn't really work very well for them. But luckily, lantana stems are a great alternative to create bee hotels for the reed bees. Lantana is a pretty nasty weed here on the Central Coast, so the more of it we can chop down, the better. And a great way to reuse the stems that have been chopped down is by hanging them in little bundles with the chopped ends all facing the one direction. Now you can get a piece of wire or cable and wrap it around that bundle, and then you can secure that up in a tree. You want to make sure it's really well protected. You don't want it to float around in the wind, so put it right in the dense foliage, or you can put it down at ground level. Just make sure that it's somewhere where dogs and people won't be trampling on them and disturbing those reed bees. And if you come back in a little while and look really closely down the stems of these lantanas, you'll notice that the reed bees can create cavities inside these stems, and that's what they'll use to create their nests. Once you've finished making your bee hotel, it's time to find it a nice new home in your garden, and there are a few things to consider. Firstly, you want to make sure it receives lots of morning sun. Afternoon shade is fine, but you want to make sure that it's protected from the elements. If you have a big bee hotel that has a frame and a roof, it can be out in your garden. But if it's more fragile, it's important to protect it either under a dense tree or maybe under some awnings or your veranda. It's also really important to make sure that your bee hotel is as close as possible to as many flowers as possible. That means that there's less distance for the female bee to travel to the flowers to get pollen to feed her brood. That means she can lay more eggs and we'll have more bees. And bees are incredibly important in our ecosystem as pollinators. When you're looking after your flower garden, it's important not to use any insecticides because these will kill all of your native bees. So remember, the more native flowers you can plant, the more bee hotels you can put in your garden, the better we'll be helping our native insect populations, which are incredibly important for so many different reasons, for pollinating all of the plants that we need to survive and thrive. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.